The Sony PlayStation. What an iconic piece of hardware, a staple for gaming from the mid-90s to the early 2000s. Spawning such classics as Crash Bandicoot and Gran Turismo, it was a truly revolutionary console that came out of nowhere. But as time went on during the lifespan of the console, there were a few hardware revisions and design changes implemented, as it happens with consoles as they try to make them cheaper, more reliable or more space efficient. Whatever the reason, it just happens, and the PlayStation is obviously no stranger to this at all. Here it is, probably your favourite grey rectangular prism. It looks pretty standard, doesn't it? Yeah, it does, but being the first model, it has its privileges. The most noticeable difference comes from the back of the unit, which is pretty busy with its figure 8 power cable, AV multi-output, RCA ports as an alternative to the AV multi-output, the serial port and the parallel port. The Japanese first model, which I don't have, has all of this, plus an S-video output, the lucky bastards. Though it's easy to get S-video and even RGB, which is much better, out of the AV multi-output. Other differences, which are rather minor by comparison, include the power and open buttons displaying the function in text form instead of symbols, and the location and shape of the disk drive, which makes things difficult if you want to replace the drive if it dies, and trust me, they die a lot on these models. Luckily enough, however, the PS1 console released in 2001 has a nearly identical laser and drive that you can replace it with and have it function perfectly. That's what I had to do with mine and my brother's, which he found for $2, the wanker. These are two of the later models, and even though they have the disk drive in the same location, do not be fooled, looks can be deceiving, because they are still quite different underneath with different sized ribbon cables and the sort. And I found that out the hard way. Looking now at the other models which I just have to have lying around, you certainly notice the absence of ports at the back, which I suppose they deemed unnecessary and told to fuck off. Also here they opted for symbols rather than text on the power and open buttons, which is great when it comes to language barriers, but I personally prefer the text. I'd say that's a good bulk of the cosmetic differences covered, so how about we have a look at some of the on-screen differences. As I was saying before I exploded, we're going to take a look at other differences that involve video capturing, so here we go! Unfortunately, my recordings love cutting off the first part of the console boot screen, so I only get the end part just before it transitions into the menu screen. Also, I'm only going to be comparing the consoles that I own, because trying to cover all of these would kill me! Though I really wish I had the Net Yarazze and development systems though, they look fucking cool. Here is a still of the initial menu screen from my 1002 model. This visual style, this grey, bland grid style with these two icons in the middle, is shared between the PAL 1002 and 5502 models. Having a look at the memory card section, we have the same background style and a menu that I personally find rather difficult to navigate through, but it's doable. Again, this is the same on the 5502 model. Now to the CD player portion. Basically the same style, but here, and it's important to note, there are these nice audio effects you can add to the sound. Once more, it's the same as the 5502.
Warning, this disc is for use only on Sega Dreamcast.
Moving away from these models, we come to the 7502 model. Wait, this has happened before. Anyway, this is the style I like to call the splat style, because I'm a clever sausage. This is essentially identical to the 9002, so everything you see here is the same on the 9002, if I remember correctly. The memory card menu in this style is much easier for me at least to navigate through and see what I'm doing. The CD player section is a slightly altered layout, but now we're missing the cool audio effects. So what do we get instead with these? Something even cooler. Audio visualizations.
Warning, this disc is for use only on Sega Dreamcast.
Though they're hard to make look cool with the Dreamcast disc. The last console we'll be looking at is the 102 PS1. And would you look at that, we've gone back to the grey gritty bland style, but with different menu icons. How's the memory card menu? A little different to the first two, same style, but with an easier layout. Let's have a look once more at the CD player portion. Again, the same style as the first two with a slightly altered layout, and we see the return of the mad audio effects, and at the same time, we have the visualizations.
Warning. This disc is for use
Yeah, I
only
know,
on Sega
go away.
Dreamcast.
Now, there's another difference I'd like to mention. It's very minor and doesn't really affect anything, but I think it's worth mentioning. This, the very first thing you see when you turn on the PlayStation, has its own differences between consoles. See if you can spot the differences yourself. Just one more thing before I head off. People out there like to call the early 1002 models, or the 1000 series as a whole, the audiophile models. And it's all because of these RCA outputs. Apparently, these units can produce sound with quality on par with multi-$1,000 sound systems. I say apparently because I don't have any professional sound equipment, I just have these old Yamaha systems hooked up to these big wood grain boxes and a subwoofer. So I said that was the last thing I'd mention, so I guess it's time for me to go. So for now and as always, I'll be back in 16 bits. This is fun. Okay, stop it now.
Oh, is that it? Are you hurt now? Ow!
Yes.
You hit yourself.